They tried to knock you out. They tried to kick you where it hurts. You got up. You kept going. That was in there.
I think they know the writing's on the wall. Maguire, Senior, back to Maguire. Gary Maguire for Leeds. The young hero to win the grand final,
Hi everybody, welcome to the Lot Pod, the Leeds Rhinos Lot 17A podcast, kindly sponsored by ACD&B, who are a branding and creative design agency based in Farsley, Leeds. They create standout brands, so if any companies out there need a brand new logo or a brand refresh, just get in touch with ACD&B. Thanks as always to them for sponsoring us, not just on the podcast, but also with the fanzine and with everything else. We love their support, so thank you as always to them. Well, this is the Lot Pod, and you can follow us, and I think you should, on YouTube. If you just type into YouTube the Lot Pod, that's us there. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, we live stream all of our podcasts. So if you're watching this live, you will know that. But if you're watching this back or listening to it back on iTunes or Spotify, we do record these live as a live stream. So if you follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube, hit the notification bell. You'll have a notification every time we record this podcast live. And you can also jump back into our podcast back catalogue, watch all of our specials with Danny Maguire, Fran Goldthorpe, Yestin Harris, Barry McDermott, etc. They are all there on our YouTube channel. So if you just head over to YouTube and search The Lot Pod or at The Lot Pod, that's us. Hit that subscribe button. Match review panel time, Leeds versus Leigh. Joining me as always, my co-host, my right-hand man, but our stats man. Statman Reese.
I'm a stat.
Freeze.
Statman Reese returning from Stag Do number 2.
Yep.
Can hardly speak.
Not really. I actually think this is the best I've felt since I got home yesterday morning, because then I got home and then got straight in the car to come to the Rhinos, which in fact was probably the worst punishment of the stag weekend, I think.
Would you like a pint?
I had pints at the rugby, and then
would you like one now?
No, I'm not going to drink until the wedding now. I don't need to.
Are you completely on a detox now?
I need it for quite a while.
A cleanse
I've put on at least half a stone this weekend.
Just in alcohol consumption.
Food, yeah.
Right. Glad you're enjoying
and
it.
we did exercise, so I don't know how I've done that, but anyway.
Exercise, alcohol, kebabs, Leeds Rhinos, the best stag, second stag. Are you having any more?
No more stags. No more stags.
Yeah, I've got 3 more booked. Got Vegas, Thailand. Who's joining us for this?
We have Josh from the band Kimber, who's had to change his Twitter handle to Josh Hefferman because he kept answering on his band's account and he got told off by his manager. So he's now Josh Hefferman on Twitter. But Josh, how are you?
Yeah, hello fellas. Not too bad. We've had a sickness bug in the house over the weekend, so Rohan will be proud of me doing it tough tonight, feeling under the weather.
Another one doing it tough.
No, we're proud of you, Josh. We're proud of you.
You brave soldier. Match review panel time, Leeds versus Leigh. Lucky us. Everybody take a deep breath. I'm not entirely sure how long the physical match review panel of the game will take, to be honest. It seems to be a bit more of a deep dive into kind of the usual topics after yet another defeat, but we'll kind of delve into the match review panel. Reese, you went to the game. You are incredibly lucky in that sense. Positives, can we as fans take any positives from this defeat?
I've been struggling to think about it, and I think Andrew has just come up with the best one in the comments, which is the biggest plus was that through that, with all the injuries, we still managed to pick a side that didn't include Ulfers.
There's still time, Andrew. Now Sangare went off injured.
Yeah. I think there are some positives in there still. I think Luke Hooley had a much better game in his second appearance in a Rhino shirt. So I'm pleased that he's almost got that whole KR game off his back now. And with Minor being out for the rest of the season, I don't think Luke's a bad option. We miss his impact, Minor's impact into the line, but I thought Luke did a really good job. And a couple of people mentioned it as well. Lewis Roberts was unlucky to get a penalty for a high tackle because I didn't think it was, but he looked like he probably had one of his better games as well, having to step in. So, but that's about as far as it goes. I think Jared as well probably was another positive. It's a shame he didn't get his second, but that's a good intervention from the Leigh defence. But other than that, it was a really poor afternoon in general. It felt very, very weird. I don't know if people in the comments would agree, but the atmosphere at Headingley on Sunday was really, really strange and wasn't fun at the end, I don't think. But it just the whole thing, South Stand was quiet, it was empty. Having Leeds United, I went down for a toilet halfway through the first half, and there was about 100 people watching the Leeds United game in the South Stand whilst the Rugby League was going on.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere in the South Stand was really, really bland. The rugby was boring.
So were Leeds United.
It was really, really, really boring. It felt very pre-season-y, and Leigh half-arsed it, and we're the better team by a long way.
Is this worrying now? Sorry, Josh, before I ask you. Is this worrying now, Reece? Because we kind of said on the Hull KR review that the game was flat and it lacked energy. Now, I've said before on this podcast that our home games, especially those games where Blake Costin were absolutely unbelievable, they all seem to be at home. And now we've had 2 back-to-back games where not only is the atmosphere flat, but the players seem to be flat and lacking it. Is this something to be concerned about, these home games, Reece?
I think so, because
we
we feed off, as fans, you feed off what you see on the pitch. And I think a lot of before the game yesterday, we saw that people were really worried about the lineup. But
we lost you, Reece. Yep, I think we just lost Reece there. Josh?
Yeah.
Positives?
I've been thinking all day for this. The positive I came up with was that last week was probably the worst game we've seen Cam Smith play for a very long time. And I thought he played much better yesterday. And I thought Jared played a lot better as well. And those two had terrible games the week before. So it's nice to just see them put that bad form behind them, put it to bed straight away. And that's what a quality player does. They don't stick in a bad rut of form. I was just reading through the comments there. To your point about the atmosphere, I think Laurie's right. And it's probably something we'll talk about later. But Laurie's written, the fans in the ground yesterday knew the season was over and went through the motions. And I think that after that Saints defeat, that's kind of the feeling that I had as well. I kind of felt a little numb to the game yesterday. I've actually watched it twice.
Why? That's a question in itself.
Because I like to. Basically, the first time I watched it, it was so dull. And with United being on as well,
it was so dull. You thought, I'll watch this again.
I thought, being on tonight, I better see if I've missed anything important, and I hadn't, basically.
It's a good job I didn't. It's a good job I didn't have a notepad. It's a good job I didn't have a notepad with me, because literally there wouldn't have been anything to write down.
There's no on mine.
No, there was just none. But I think a lot, like you saying, just a lot of people in the comments now are just saying, Ginny's saying, judging from social media, people moved beyond anger to indifference. I've found a new word to describe how I feel. I've been using despondent.
Listen up, Cameron.
Cameron will always win, but I'm now disconsolate now.
Disconsolate?
So I had to Google what this meant, but very unhappy and unable to be comforted.
Really?
There's not. I don't think there's many things for me now where that I can't. I find it very, very hard to be positive about the Rhinos at the moment, both on and off the field. And I was hoping that yesterday we would have said, because that game was there for the taking, even though we were awful. Leigh half-arsed that. We could have won that game quite easily, but not one player took it upon themselves to do it yesterday.
Yeah, I thought Leigh were poor. I don't think there was anything special about Leigh. We were just worse.
Well, because there was they didn't need. It was a warm-up match then for next week.
Yeah,
and they tried to that.
Watching the game, I was thinking, how many of these players actually care about Leeds Rhinos? So, like in the good old days, you would say all those academy players, that golden generation, they cared more about the Rhinos than they did their own careers, I would say.
Yeah.
Opting to stay for less money so they could stay together to win competitions. I feel like we've got a team full of individuals, a majority of individuals now, a lot of players in key positions who are here just almost see it as a job. And I think to win a grand final, to win a competition, it's those extra percenters which matter. And I genuinely think you get that passion through academy players that are a success. People that have stood on the terrace themselves, representing the club that they support, like a JJB or a Danny Maggs or whatever. It's those extra percenters. And if you look at the teams that have won Super League, you've got Wigan, Saints, Bradford, they've all got incredible academies, and it's always been built off that. And I was just looking at the side yesterday. We looked disinterested to me. The few players that looked like they were really trying was Cam Smith. I thought Jared looked like he was trying. I thought Roberts looked like he was trying. There was a few, but
Bentley was. I thought Bentley had quite a good game yesterday, to be fair. And Handley will always give everything, I think. So I don't think they don't all care.
Bentley, no, I'm not saying they don't care to a point of I still think any athlete that steps on the field wants to win. I'm talking about that extra, I will do anything to get this club back to where it is. And I just feel that's how I feel. I just feel like we've got a lot of players who, not that they don't care, because it's still their career. They want to win. They want to do well. But how a fan would care about the club. I don't think we've got enough of those players at the minute. And that's what I feel a winning team should be built off the back of.
I think, like Reece said there, and yourself, Josh, this game was very winnable, even with Corey in the halves, with Aidan Caesar. I still felt, I think everyone did. I had a bit of an inkling that Leigh wouldn't, they'd rest one or two, which they did, but they still were, they didn't even get out of second gear. Now, whether that was because we didn't make them and they could just coast through the game and still beat us rather comfortably, but this was a very winnable game, I felt. And the Saints game was a winnable
Most
game.
of them have been winnable, because we said last week we've lost a lot of games by just a try.
Yeah.
And we're sitting in ninth, still 4 points off the playoffs. But, as is it Caleb saying in the chat, we've got people leaving. There's 10 players currently at the moment that are due to leave the club. And whatever's going on behind the scenes, I don't know where the energy this is going to come from. I don't know where the life's being sucked out of them. And we're going to come on to a certain someone later on who I think is the primary person for that.
Why would you give an extra 10% to put your body on the line if you know you're not going to be here next year? Or do you know what I mean? I just feel like I don't feel that connection to these players that I don't know. I just don't feel like the passion is there. I also think we look a bit unfit. But that's some
of the carries weren't great. I mean, it was really boring to watch. But then there was also uncharacteristic mistakes. I mean, Ledsky getting completely sidestepped by Amone on the line was quite embarrassing, to be honest, I thought, for what is one of England's leading props. We got absolutely done by Moni on that one for their second try. And for their first try, again, it was just laziness. It was a lack of reaction when Mbappe just ran 10 metres from dummy half.
He's a good player.
No, don't get me wrong.
He's a
Mbappe
really
is a very good player.
I think he's scored six. I think he's scored 6 tries this year, and 3 have been against Leeds.
Probably doesn't sound about right, doesn't it? But yeah, I
feel like I've been waiting for Ledsky to kick into gear all year. You know.
Shall we address the elephant in the room, Mikael Ledsky?
It is a bit of an elephant because we've not talked about him, have we?
We haven't. I think sorry, Reece. I think the last time we spoke about him was ages ago when we spoke about him and Newman. Well, Newman were fit. That's how long ago it was. About them just recovering from injury and kind of getting their season back on track. Do you have the stats for Ledsky, Reece? I'll pass it to Josh first. I mean, what have you made of Ledsky's season, Josh? Think he's been in good form, bad form?
I think by his standards, he's underperformed. I know he came into the season with an injury, didn't he? And he obviously played the World Cup.
Yeah.
I do wonder if maybe not having that full pre-season, or I don't know, maybe because he seemed to play every minute. He played so much last year.
He was the only Leeds player to play every single game last year, and he was the top meter makers for props last year as well, I believe.
Yeah,
exactly. So that's what I think. He, like you say, Eddie, I think he carried us last year. Like you say, Reece, he played so much rugby last year. I don't know if there's an element of fatigue there with the World Cup off the back of it as well. But he seemed just kind of a bit flat. Like I don't think he's had a bad game. Like I don't think he's been like, I'm not screaming at the telly at him or screaming in the stands at him. It's just not been like, I would say our best prop this year has been Tom Holroyd.
Definitely.
I don't know.
I laugh at that a bit because if you look at the meters that's made, Ledsky is actually the top meter making prop for the last 5 games for Leeds.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
So Holroyd yesterday got 46 off 11 carries, whereas Ledsky got 99 off 11 carries.
I don't think Holroyd makes. I don't think he makes incredible meters if you look across the entire season. I just think he's able to inject himself into the game when it needs it. And he'll, say if the game's a bit flat, he'll be able to get the ball, drive hard, skittle a few blokes and quick play the ball. And some things comes off the back of it. Right? And that's what I mean about Ledsky. I don't think he's played badly. Like, he's getting good meters, most weeks. It's just more he's kind of just plodding along, kind of getting those meters. It's just last year he had just such a big impact, didn't he? He was such an enforcer for us. And I tip him to come back next year, but we have missed it.
Well, out of our props, we've only had, I think it's 7. I need to update my stats because I've not done it today yet, but only 7 times a prop has made over 100 metres for Rhinos this year. If I look at Amone and Robbie Mulhern, who were the starting props, I think, yesterday for Leigh. I think Robbie wasn't he? Yeah. Tom Amone, 156. Robbie Mulhern, 142. Yeah. Amone had 18 carries. Robbie Mulhern had 16 carries. The difference between our starting props, they've got double the meters of our starting props.
I thought Ava Manaf and I played better than any of that.
I forgot he was playing until I saw the stats.
He had a good game.
Are
our expectations of Ledsky too high, or is that just his own standards that he set for us?
He set them.
Him to reach?
He set it last year.
He set it. He's capable. That's the player he is. It's just he's still relatively young for a prop. He's got his prime ahead of him. I'm not too worried. I think he'll come good. It's just been a bit of a flat season for him. And also maybe he doesn't stand out because we've got better players in the pack now to share the load. Like a Holroyd, Walters, whoever. Maybe they're doing more of those carries and he's not having to do as much. Maybe, I'm not sure.
I'm just wondering whether Ledsky's a metaphor for the season as a whole. in
Could
the how good he was last year, the expectation that set, and then how we've fallen short. Much shorter, but anyway.
Speaking of the pack, Sam Lisone, yellow carded for a trip. What did you make of that, Reese?
That was so stupid. It was so stupid. And Lisone's not. I mean, I know he had that stormer of a game against Giants. I don't think we've seen.
Feels like a long time ago, that, don't you think?
It does. It's not that.
Feels like it was last season. Were Kyle Eastman playing for us then?
Yeah, but yeah, Lisone. I don't think we've seen.
Can we get Kyle Eastman back?
Is he still playing rugby? Lisone got 59 meters off 7 carries. So Sam only had 7 carries yesterday.
I thought that trip.
Reese, sorry, you go.
I know. I'm just going to say, I thought that trip were pathetic.
I mean, Andrew said in the comments, I'm surprised he's not picked up a banner. He has got a grade B, so it must have been from his previous record. But it was pathetic. That was a word I used a lot yesterday. I was going to try not to use it today.
Pathetic of him. The game was.
I hate the trips.
Yeah, I do. I think it was 10-6 at the
it's
time.
It's laziness, I think.
Yeah, kind of. It was a nothing game. Everyone knows how flat and boring it was. And then he just sticks the leg out. I just thought, you know what, mate? Just don't bother. If you can't even be arsed, don't stick your leg out. I found it pathetic. And I've not felt that. I can't remember the last time I felt that in a Leeds United all the time. But for the Rhinos, I've not felt something pathetic.
Tetevano's red card against Wigan's the last time.
They're more infuriating though than pathetic. Sticking a leg out because petulance. Yeah. No, it was incredibly pathetic, and I felt he knew it on his face straight away. And I thought, we're really trying to go down swinging here. We're trying to fight for something in a home game that we should be winning. If you ask me, we should be winning. We should be beating a team like Leigh at home. No matter what year it is, no matter what century we're on we should be. People think that's really arrogant. It is, but we are Leeds Rhinos, and we should be beating Leigh at home. And if he can't be arsed and just sticks his leg out to trip, I would just speak.
Leigh are a good side this year, and they smashed us at their place deservedly.
Yeah,
but the way they played on Sunday was nowhere near how they played against us in their home game.
They played like a team on your stag do.
In fact, we should have played the stag. The stag group should have come and played. We was 14 of us. We'd had a 1-13 easy. But yeah, that wasn't great, and his meters wasn't great. I mean, Justin's for another prop. He was on 60 meters off 9 carries.
Can I ask what meters Lisone got, Reese?
59 from 7 carries.
You see, I even laughed one point yesterday watching it because I think he runs in and with all this aggression, and then he just stops dead and drops like a sack of potatoes. There was a point yesterday he ran in, and he hit the tackle. He went back 2 yards, and I just burst out laughing. I just think his post-contact meters are so. I really wish we had that starting Super League, the PCNs, because I think it'd be really fascinating to see how some of our forwards go with that. But yeah, it's pathetic's a good word for yesterday, I think.
As a whole, I think that was the word that I used yesterday. It was really disappointing. It was just the life had been sucked out of the club in every sense of the word yesterday. In it, with the people on the pitch, the people in the stands, there was no life anywhere. And the other thing that's really annoyed me, and Adams has put it in the comments, I forgot Sinfield was on the bench. And we only gave him 9 minutes, and Caesar's there hobbling around on 1 foot. And I know it's quite hard to have two very young people at halfback in Sinfield and Johnson, but I'm a bit gutted and annoyed that Sinfield only came on with 8 or 9 minutes to go when there was no life in it anyway. But maybe if you'd come on a bit earlier, you might have injected something. But
I agree. I thought it was stupid.
And you said before, is this the type of game for Sinfield? And then someone's left since then, and it probably was the perfect time.
Well, I'm going to kind of chew on that bone when we talk about he who shall not be named. But no, I thought it was a stupid decision from Smith to not bring Jack on, to not start him. To be brutally honest, I think it was a Jack game, as I said before. Austin left. Do you think Josh Sinfield deserved to start, or certainly deserved more minutes against Leigh?
Yeah, I do. And the ironic thing is, if Rowan had started him, he'd have probably got less stick because the fans want to see him play. They want to see, if Sinfield and Johnson were in the halves and would have got beaten, the fans maybe would have accepted it as, it's giving Jack some game time, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But the only thing is, in his post-match interview, Rowan did say Jack sad. He was implying that a lot's gone off for Jack in the last month, and he said he was really very aware of not giving him too much after the last month. So I'm not sure what's happened in the last month. He didn't really want to go into it. But yeah, for me, I'd just play him. Like I don't see the benefit of playing. I think the season's I don't see the benefit of
that question's coming, so don't answer that question yet. That question's coming.
I think, look, Sinfield's going to be here for a long time. Caesar's off next year. Let's give Sinfield a bit of game time. It was a weakened Leigh side. I don't know. I think it's the perfect game to give Sinfield a run out.
I would have much rather Sinfield to start, have Corey on the bench and rotate Jared and Corey and Cameron Smith a bit more, because obviously Jared can play 13. So I'd rather, when we're taking Cam off for a breather for 10, 15 minutes, that Jared goes to 13 and we bring Corey on to bring a bit of pace on life, because I think Corey's got something about him, to be fair. And he had moments in that game where you could see he had a bit more energy and he's got quite good feet, but it was just disappointing that we didn't see Sinfield earlier in a game that needed an injection in life, and that was a position where someone wouldn't be able to inject life.
I think, like you said there, Reese, with whoever, I think it wouldn't necessarily matter who started, whether it was Corey, whether it was Jack or Jared, and between the three, as in Corey going in half, you can chop and change and try to adapt and try to change something in a game. Cover your ears, George. That fucking needed it. It needed something, and chucking Jack in there with Corey. I don't think there's a Leeds Rhinos fan on the planet, in the galaxy, in the universe, that wants to see Aidan Caesar play. So few and far between. Had he kind of rolled the dice, like Josh says, and gone, right, here's Jack Sinfield and Corey Johnson, at least then as fans we could say, right, so here's two young kids, one who was screaming out to see, and the other, again, who are happy for him to get a chance. And you kind of step back and look at it and go, well, he has no other options because of what happened with Austin and Caesar running around on one leg. He has no other options. So he's rolled his dice and said, right, this is it. Can these kids unlock something to get us to win this game? And you stand back and go, if we lose, you go, well, he had nothing else. There was no other option. But with Jack sat on the bench and comes on with 9 minutes to go, I'm thinking, why? What have we got to lose?
And maybe Jack was one of these 3 or 4 players that Rowan's mentioned was ill.
Potentially, yeah.
I really don't think Rowan helped himself in that post-match press conference at all. I said last week that I just want us to own bad performances and come out and say we weren't good enough. And when we should have had that last week, and then we didn't get it again this week, and we all got excuses about people being slightly under weather. In the mood that I was in yesterday, I lost it at that point when I read it, because it was it annoyed me, because he hasn't.
Like angry Reese.
We've lost 12 games this year and we've won 9, and of all those 12 games, I could probably say we don't do all these where we put all these clips on Twitter afterwards and start complaining about the ref or the sins that are going to get against us.
Who's doing that this week?
Saints and Salford, isn't it now? They're doing
and Salford
from the same game. It's starting to come a bit trendy, which I don't like about it.
I tell you what, it is boring.
Yeah, it is. But for every one of our 12 losses this year, we have lost those games, and
I thought you were going to say that for every defeat we've had, we should go back, get all the clips.
No, no, because there'd be too many of all the mistakes that we've made and all the errors that we've done and all the stupid things. I just think all those games we've lost, we have lost ourselves, and he's not owned any of it. And that's really starting to annoy me now.
The only time he really kind of showed something different of all the games this year was Wakefield. You could really see after that he did look hurt you could see some kind of emotion from him. But other than that, after every game, it's the same cliche. It's the same. Thought we played well, good application, couple of errors, rinse and repeat. Whether he's doing that just to protect the players, and he's really protective, and he kind of says to them, right, I'll take the bullets, but you have to perform for me.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
But I want to see the behind the game for that. I want to see them in the change rooms. I want to see the players hurting. And I want to see someone like Cammy going around the room saying, that wasn't good enough and we can't let that happen again. But because we don't get any communication, and at the moment feels that things are feeling disconnected for me at the moment, not as a fan, but I feel like it's disconnected in the dressing room because it looks disconnected on the pitch.
Yeah.
I just think we need to start seeing comms and videos or whatever of people saying we've not been good enough.
Yeah, we need that message. Man of the match?
Again, I hate doing this when we lose. I'm going to give it props to Luke Cooley.
Me too.
I think Bentley was up there for me. I thought Bentley had a really, really good game.
Jared.
Yeah, although I would have given it to Jared if he hadn't dropped it.
That was a good tackle.
Sorry, Jared.
Jared tried his best.
And I think Roberts is another name, but I think because of Luke Cooley's first game against Hull KR to then come back and play like he did on Sunday is much better. I think Luke Cooley for me.
Do you agree with that, Josh?
Yeah. Why not?
Why not? Congratulations to Luke Cooley. You are officially the Lot Pod man of the match. We had it was quite an exciting end to the week, really. It all got a bit mental. I think it was Thursday, Friday.
Transfer deadline day.
Transfer deadline day. Blake Austin, the elephant in the room. The other elephant, there's two. He appeared on a podcast. It was a few weeks ago that he appeared on this podcast. And a clip of what he said kind of got clipped and it went viral. I think it was Josh Biggs.
Biggs that did it, yeah.
Josh Biggs that picked up what he said from this podcast a few weeks ago, which, to be honest, Josh clipping it and highlighting it has caused everything. Everything. I'm not saying Josh is to blame, but I'm saying
Josh was the man of the match.
Exactly. Josh is highlighting
Josh is to congratulate.
Yeah, exactly, because no one else saw it, because no one else watched it. He's kind of clipped it and highlighted that. Yeah. So full kudos to Josh. So Blake Austin went on this podcast and he spoke about the Rhinos playing in the friendly against New Zealand prior to the World Cup. He mentioned Reece Martin went to Gary Hetherington with his concerns about injury prior to the World Cup because they were playing for Papua New Guinea. And then Blake Austin mentioned that Gary Hetherington showed Reece Martin his contract, kind of saying, you must play in the game. And then by 7, this kind of blew up virally in rugby league terms on Twitter and on social media, this clip of him saying this. And by 7, 8, 9 o'clock the following morning, Blake Austin had left Leeds Rhinos and signed for Cast Tigers on loan. Reece, the whole debacle, what were your thoughts? We've kind of spoke about Austin more than any player this year on this podcast, but just on his thoughts on what he said and what he's been saying prior to this podcast. What are your thoughts?
No one's bigger than
that?
The club.
Correct.
And, Gary Hetherington will always make that very clear. In the fact this is the second instance that when someone who might have been acting as they're bigger than the club has been sent away, what Austin has been doing is toxic. And you can't have that. And I think the part of how we were looking on Sunday, how everything felt and how it felt on the club, I think you can put down to that toxicity that Austin's certainly been putting out in the last couple of weeks. And I think that really peaked on Sunday. But I think it was the right decision to do it. But there's two things that have annoyed me about this process is the plan B, i.e. not bringing someone in. You look at other teams this year when they've lost a key player. Let's take Leigh for an example. They lose Lutelli for the rest of the season. and they go and bring Oliver Gildart in, in England, in England international. KR, they lost Lack and Coop, so they go and get Bradley Schneider from Canberra. These clubs have recognised that something's happened and they need to go backfill. And so I'm really annoyed that we haven't backfilled, because that, for me, when it comes to our next question, is a reason why I'm saying, yes, it is over. And then the other thing that was really worried me about it, I know we spoke briefly about it before, is there didn't seem to be a connection between Rohan and Gary on this decision for me. Now, whether that's how it was spinned, the article said Blake requested to leave. I don't believe that one bit. I think he was certainly shown the door as opposed to him walking through the door and asking about it. But I am a bit worried that it appeared in Rowan's press conference, or how he came across, that he didn't know about it and he wasn't involved, and therefore is there a disconnection between him and Gary at the moment?
Josh, how do you see it?
Yeah, there was a lot in there. I think, I mean, first of all, no one, like as everyone is saying, no one's bigger than the club. This, maybe I wasn't articulating myself well enough earlier. This is the type of player I'm referring to, someone who's kind of playing for themselves rather than the club. This goes back further anyway, him touting himself out, saying he could be a good 14 in the NRL, all that stuff, rather than trying to fight for his contract at Leeds or whatever. Anyway, let's not go into that. But so yeah, glad he's gone. Fine with that. First thing to mention, I don't think that story is fully true. I can hardly imagine Gary Hetherington actually going and getting a contract and threatening to rip it up in front of Reece Martin for asking this question. Also, the game was arranged in, when was it? Like April
5-6 months before the game was played.
Yeah.
So
I also thought it was Reece Martin's story to tell. If anyone's going to tell it, I think that's pretty poor form to throw your mate under the bus. So for all those things, it's just a bit of a nonsense for me. Get rid of him. That's fine. To your point, Reece, about signing someone, the way I saw it was, it kind of all developed a day, if not 2 days, if not 1 day before the eve of the transfer window. And my worry was that we were just going to go and sign someone who wasn't good enough for the Rhinos and be stuck with them for 2 or 3 years in what is a key position. If we'd have managed to get a lone player in to do a job till the end of the season, I would have thought differently. But that was my worry. If I just really didn't want us to end up with someone who wasn't good enough. There's a bit of a panic buy because we've been dealt this card late in the day. Again, it goes to that question which we're avoiding for now. But I kind of feel like I've given up a little bit on this season. So I'm kind of happy to see Sinfield ride out the season, give some game time to him, and let's go for it and go for it well in this off season. Regarding the press conference from Rohan and his strange answer about not knowing anything about it, I could see there being an element of truth to that, but I could also see Rohan, the way he is, kind of just saying that to be able to avoid answering any questions on it. I would like to think there was conversations which he was involved in with Gary, but it did come across like there wasn't, and he had no idea of it. I think the truth probably somewhere in the middle. Maybe it was a decision taken out of his hands, but also I don't believe he had no knowledge of it whatsoever. I think it was probably just an answer in the press conference to shut down that line of inquiry, so he wouldn't have to answer any more questions on it by making out that he didn't know anything about it, if that makes sense.
I agree. I think there were a bit of spin there from Rohan on it, but
do you think it's the right spin though? Because do you not think it creates more questions than answers?
I think the same about
when you put everything together of how Sunday felt and including that bit. I don't think it's been if it was a spin, I don't think it's the right move.
I think what Rowan's aim was in that answer was, it was 1000% Gary Hetherington who volleyed Blake Austin straight out of Kirkstall the second he walked in the following day. It was 100% Gary Everington who said to Blake Austin, turn around, go back out the door. You are not playing for this club anymore. Now, Rowan will 1,000% will have known that was going to happen. And I think what Rowan was trying to say in the presser to an extent was, this is Gary Everington's decision. So I think he was kind of spinning it to say, I didn't know anything about this until the morning, being that I didn't know anything about this, that he'd completely gone. He'd have known that he'd have been speaking to Gary Everington. Gary would have rang him to say, this guy is out the door. He's gone. Now, Rowan might have been, this is completely me putting two and two together. I think he means the confirmation that he had left the club. He'd have been like, right, I didn't know that until, but he would have known. Anyway, that's jumping at that. Blake Austin had to leave the club. He had to go. He had to get out. He was getting worse. As I've said before, we've spoken about him many times and how he's conducting himself. And I don't think many of us on the podcast or many of us listening have enjoyed it. He had to go. In terms of, so he simply had to go. He forced the club's hand. We had to volley him out of the club.
It's amazing how quickly it's turned now, hasn't it?
Yeah. And that only left
after that Huddersfield game, how to burn a bridge. That's if you want, a 101 book. Christ.
I think that's exactly what he's done. I think he's a woman scorned. I think he's not liked that the club have said to him. He's clearly been demanding 2 years.
Yeah.
And the club must have been saying, look, it's one at best. And they've obviously been talking, him, his agent, to the club. And the club just keep batting it back, saying, one's as good as it gets. Now, I think he doesn't like the sound of that.
Well, didn't he come out and say he likes a one-year deal earlier in the season?
Yeah, at the beginning of the season.
His behaviour would reflect that. The way he's been behaving would reflect that he doesn't like the sound of the 1 year from the club. Now, we have to kick him out. He had to go. But that then forced our hand because we had 24 hours scrambling round to try and find at least one replacement. And like Josh says, we didn't want to end up with someone on a 2-year deal because we just get back into that routine again of having a player that's not good enough when we need better for 2024.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
But we've in essence we have a even bigger hole to fill now because we're not just looking for one half back, are we? We're definitely looking for 2.
3.
Yeah.
3, 4, sign them all.
I'd rather have 2. We'll come on to anything else on Blake Austin?
Good riddance.
Yeah, see you, Blake. Dickhead.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah.
I think Gary probably did push the door on him on the way out. It wouldn't be a surprise.
Arsehole. On to the next question for the podcast. Again, briefly mentioned, briefly flirted with speaking about it. It's the question of, is our season over? We'll go through the panel. Please do feel free to answer this in the YouTube comments as well, live stream as well. We'll read some of those out. Reese. No, I'll start with Josh. Josh, is Leeds Rhinos season over?
Yes, it is. It's the reason I felt numb, like a bit numb watching the game yesterday. I felt like the game's like the season's done. I came to that conclusion after the Saints game. I just think we haven't got a spine that can take us into the playoffs and on a run. Like, knowing that I was coming on here today, I just had a little look just to try and think back at who we've lost since our grand final, the team of last year. And I was just looking, and there's Leeming, Hardacre, Sutcliffe, Briscoe, Pryor, Jack Walker, and now Austin. And I'm not even saying that is a fantastic squad that we had last year, but I feel that this squad is weaker. But highlighting that our spine just cannot deliver a game plan. It cannot get us to the right points on the field. It cannot win us the games. The one positive for me this season, which I was clinging on to, was when we lost, we didn't seem to get battered. It would often be quite a narrow loss within 1 or 2 tries. And for me, I was thinking, okay, that's an indicator that the rest of the squad is doing relatively well at what they should be doing. All we need is a cohesive spine, a 6 and a 7 and a 1 to deliver the game plan.
I thought you were
I'm genuinely going to go through the team then. I thought you were going to do 1, 2, 3.
A 3, a 14.
Well, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the season's gone. The squad's not good enough.
How do you feel about? Is the season gone, Reese?
I mean, we're just looking at some of the comments that have been coming through. So, Andrew, yes. White Rhino, 100%. Paul Ramsden, the season is dead. Ginny, dead as a dodo. Andrew, dead, buried, and put a fork in him. Adam has said, I'm going to say no, the teams around us, I don't think they're playing well either. There's been quite a couple of comments about people. I saw one comment about someone moving to a flexi ticket next year from the season ticket if things don't improve. And I've seen quite a few comments in the Facebook group. Now, I know people will be emotional after losing a game and obviously how awful it was on Sunday. And in a week where the club have just announced they've got the ticket sales back to pre-COVID numbers. But I do think they are in danger if they don't do something or start making the right noises that it could go that way. But I think everyone's on the same page. I think the season is well and truly over. That's why I said disconsolate.
Disconsolate? Said that word again.
Because I can't. There's no way you can convince me to do that. But as Andrew says, every cloud, it's 30% off for the first team shirt at the moment.
I thought we were 35.
Is it 35 now? Right. Well,
I can't remember.
Yeah. No, I think the season's dead and buried. I think there's some other teams around us that are starting to pick up form. I think Wire are going to drop out of the top 6 and still, but they'll be replaced by someone else.
Lead Rhino.
But the thing is, despite how bad it's been, we're still only 4 points from the playoffs. But there is no evidence at all that we can turn this around at the moment.
I don't think we deserve to get there.
No, exactly. That's the other thing. I think it would tarnish the playoffs for us to be included in it.
Okay.
I'm reading this comment. The comment here says, we haven't had a consistent spine all season. Austin Cena have only played 2 or 3 games together, can't help injuries. Do you think injuries is the reason we're not the players aren't good enough? I don't feel
like we've had loads of injuries this year. I don't feel like we've had loads of injuries this year. And obviously part of me thinking the season's over is Myler being out for the rest of the year as well. Because even then, like with Luke playing as well as he did, we could put Myler in with Caesar in the halves if we needed to. But Myler being injured as well for the rest of the year doesn't help us. But I don't feel like we've had a overly injured team this year. I know Newman's had his injuries. But I don't think
we can blame injuries for how we've played this year. I think you could say, I think you could say the season's over because we've lost Blake Austin, we've lost Myler, but I don't feel like they're particularly.
Don't give Blake Austin that satisfaction. He does not deserve that.
No, I don't think they would have delivered anything anywhere. I just don't think the spine is good enough to take us anything anywhere into the playoffs. Personally, it's all about next year now for me.
Really looking forward to going to the game in a couple of weeks.
I am actually. I don't think our season's over. I think it's far. That is quite a shock. I agree. I think it's far from over. It's 4 points. You've got to remember how bad we were last year, and we managed to scrape into the playoffs, and then picked up some great form in the playoffs to make it all the way to the grand final. That is going to happen again. We've got Harry Newman. He's due back potentially for Wire, so he'll be back to spark us. That will put Reece Martin back into the second row. We've got Morgan Gannon around the corner, I believe. He can come in at 6, Reece, get us kicking around the park, playing half-back. There's just nothing but what we've got 3 home games and 6 games left. 3 at home, 3 away. 4 points. We can chase that down easily, and we will.
No, there's
I
nothing.
don't think
I'm
we've
the
got the
only
spine to do it.
I think I'm the only
There's-
person
There is nothing you
on
can
the
say
planet
that will
that
convince
still
me.
believes we will
Yep.
do it, and I do. I still think we're going to win grand final. You'll never get it out of me until it's mathematically impossible. We will make the playoffs and we will win the grand final.
You and Rowan.
Me and Rowan, the only two. On to recruitment then to finish up.
Again,
a bit more recruitment. We kind of briefly touched on bits throughout the pod and with Blake Austin. 2023, we've lost Cruz Lehman and first of all, one-word answers from both of you, please. Would Cruz Lehman get into our 13 currently?
yes.
Yes.
Would Blake Austin get into our 13 currently?
No, won't touch him.
Just if on his as a player.
Well, he was. Yeah.
Oh, as a skill set, yes. As a person, no.
So if that's 2 players, 2 first-team players that have walked out the club, why haven't we replaced them?
Keep going. Hardacre, Sutcliffe.
We replaced Sutcliffe with McDonald.
Okay, then. So Hardacre with Alfords. Is that what you're saying?
Hardacre was probably Luke Cooley.
Not good enough.
Or Lewis Roberts, maybe.
Not
No,
good
no.
enough.
I'm not saying. I'm saying they're being replaced, but like for like. Oh, I think
I would have
McDonald's
said-
better than Sutcliffe, but I don't think Roberts or Alfords are better than Zach Hardacre.
No, and I would have said that Jack Walker was probably more of like a Luke Cooley, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the recruitment's been good enough this year, but this is what we all knew. We knew we were signing project players at the start of the year, didn't we? Like when you were signing Luke Cooley, Lewis Roberts, James McDonald's done really well. That's been brilliant. Leon Ruin, we signed loads of projects from the divisions below, didn't we? None of us seriously thought that all those players would come in the side and take us to a grand final.
But
This
the
has all
question
been
was, we've lost 2 first-team players who were probably the top earners in the club, and therefore there's room in the cap.
That,
we've not done anything.
That happened after the season started as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
So that's what's exciting about next year. We should have so much room in the cap to work with next year.
We will never. Sorry, Josh. In this off season, we will never be in this position again in terms of cap space, in terms of potentially 3 quarter spots available to us. I mean, I can't say this happening again.
There's 10 players off contract, and we've replaced 1. There's 10 players currently going off contract, I think. That was in the article that I read earlier. And we've signed 1 replacement.
1.
Yeah.
Demand. Yeah.
I think this is what it's all about. So my bigger question in all of this is, do we need a director of rugby? Or whatever, the type of role I'm referring to.
Yeah.
I think, because I personally, I know everyone's turning on Rowan. I still personally feel like the squad was just never, ever good enough this year. And I would feel hypocritical because at the start of the year, I said that the prior year when we got to the grand final was just a great run. And Rowan did well to spark some excitement into the team, which was flat. But we lost a lot of players last year and replaced a lot with projects. And I felt that there was never much room to work on the cap. It was all about this year coming up. He's had to, he talks positively about his players, but of course he does. If he starts speaking like we do about them, they won't play for him. But I would love to know what he really thinks of the spine he's working with, or you know what I mean. But at the same time, I don't know how good Rowan is at recruitment. For me, it's still up in the air.
We don't have clarity on who's in crystal clear control on the recruitment. I suspect it's the guy signing the paychecks, or signing the checks to go do it. But
For me, it's like, do you trust Rowan with this huge opportunity that we've got? I don't know. I would love us to have been in a position where we had a director of rugby for the last 10 years who we trust. And I guess we had Gary Hetherington, but the last few years, since 2015, it's not been. I don't know. It doesn't fill you with much confidence. What do you two think?
I think trusting Rowan with this opportunity in terms of the quarter spots and the salary cap for 2024 is vital. I think that would be the club saying, right, you go out and sign your players. This is your first, I don't know, last opportunity to kind of mold this side, because come mid-season, come a couple of games into next year, if we have signed quality and some really good players, Rowan, make no doubt about it, will be under a lot of scrutiny, because then people will say, right, you've almost had a bit of a free shot previously due to the salary cap issues and squad issues we've always spoke about numerous times. But this is now, quote unquote, your squad. You've chose these players. It were vital. You got a tune out of them. But I mean, in terms of the positions, with Austin staying, which we kind of thought was going to happen, I felt we needed two then, because I'm sick to death of us not having depth at halfback. We only seem to have two starting or first team halfbacks, and then behind them, Jacksonfield or someone filling in. And I don't know why. I don't know why we just don't have two starting, one reserve senior pro, and then Jacksonfield.
That player for me would be a 14 type player, someone who could cover. So for me, I don't even think that Jared and Johnson is enough at hooker. I think personally, I would have another slightly more experienced hooker with Jared, and then I'd have Johnson as the cover. I'd have two experienced halves, 6 and 7, and then Sinfield. So it's like you've got, do you know what I mean? 3 per position. But or maybe we sign an older player to be that cover. Like, how Gareth O'Brien is not a quality standard player, but he can kind of play anywhere and do a job for a Super League team if there's injuries. I feel like we need someone like that who could play fullback in the halves or at 9, whatever.
You mean Richard Myler?
Better than that.
Go get a new one.
Exactly. But to be backup. Yeah, not to be number one.
I have to stick with Mr. Boughton sightings. We went after Lackey Miller. We've not heard anything of that. We heard about Danny Levi. We've heard nothing of that. We've heard about Adam Clunes. That's gone quiet.
Luke Brooks.
I just think with Mr. Boughton have not been quick enough, and the highlight.
I totally agree.
The team to admire is Wigan, who
never.
I think you've got to admire them.
I've never admired Wigan. I'd rather die.
I'm putting them as next year's favourites already because of how they're recruiting and what they're putting together.
No way.
But at least they've gone out and done something and made moves. So
yeah, but is there anything to be jealous of? We booted Cruz Leeming out, and we were kind of like, well, similar to Austin, you've thrown your toys out your pram, out you go. I know we've kind of said he would get in our first team, and then Sam Walters, fair enough. A lot of potential. Who else had they signed? I don't think.
Tyler Dupree.
Fair enough.
Fair
enough.
They're to sign someone else, but yeah.
Fair enough.
Right.
Tyler Dupree is a quality.
I just think, like you said, this is a massive opportunity this summer for the club, for Rowan. But with the current performances, the current atmosphere of how things feel, if it's not going right by April, May time next year, there's going to be a lot of questions.
Oh yeah.
And if they want to start creating a bit of life back in terms of for ticket sales next year, then they need to start moving forward and making some announcements pretty soon.
I feel
we need some communication.
Yeah, on the point, what I was going to say earlier about Rowan's post-match press conference, I feel like possibly he was protecting the players, all that stuff. But the problem I was going to say is it's creating a big void between the club and the fans at the minute. And I'm not sure whether he even cares about that or whether that was, it's obviously not his intention. But I'm struggling to remember a time when there felt like such disconnect between the fans and the club at the minute. I don't know if you two remember. It's just
I think this feels raw at
recency
the moment.
bias. But
2019, 2016, 2016 were really bad. 96 were bad. Don't know how old you are. 96 were shocking. This does feel quite.
I was 2 in 96.
And people have kind of mentioned like the similarities between 96 and now, in that lots of
I think-
players off contract and a lot to change. But in that season, we signed Yestin Harris, so everyone were like, "Oh, that's a brilliant signing." I feel we need something similar now to give fans something to look forward to for 2024.
We've got Yestin's number, haven't we?
Yeah.
I suppose there's Twitter now as well, isn't there? So it's like you can hear you can read everybody's frustration every single day.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think we should leave it on signing Yestin Harris again to save the club. I think we should just leave it there.
Leave it there.
He's an agent now, isn't he?
He is. I think he's Cruz Leeming's agent. We are digressing. Cut Reese with a tangent for a change. Josh, thank you very much, as always.
Cheers, lads.
Statman Reese, thank you very much, as always. Thank you, everybody, for listening back, for watching live on YouTube. We will be back to review the Warrington game in about a month's time, whenever it is. Take care. See you then.